Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Manon Bolliger, a retired and deregistered naturopathic physician with 30 plus years of experience. Here you will discover engaging and informative conversations between experienced healers, covering all aspects of healing, the personal journey, the journey of the practitioner, and the amazing possibilities for our own body and spirit.
So welcome to the Healers Café. And today I have with me a second time, Jonathan Damonte, and he is actually explaining his homeopathy course that has been made simplified so that really anybody with an interest to help their family can get started, as well as all the way people who are practicing homeopathy and are looking for a more exacting and simplified way of using symptoms. So, but we're going to really address the person who doesn't know too much about homeopathy by showing a simple case. And those of you who have been trained in different ways of looking at it, I'm sure you'll have lots of questions. So please feel free to as well put your questions in. All right, so welcome again.
Hi, thanks for having me back. And
Right,
I'm always excited to, let people know about this methodology. And I want to point out that it is my presentation, but it's not my foundational work. This is the work of Dr. Heiner Fry and his team that resulted from a clinical study into ADHD and some really amazing insights into how to prescribe homeopathy in a more clear and direct manner. And so I've been utilizing it in my practice for several years now, and it has revolutionized the way I'm prescribing, and I would say has increased my success rate so dramatically. And I'm just very grateful. And I feel I'm at the age and stage where, we need to share our knowledge. And I think what I've put together in Homeopathy Simplified is really the course I wished I would have had from the very beginning, whether I was prescribing for my kids or for my animals, my farm, or as a practitioner, adding homeopathy to my armamentarium and tool set.
Now, one thing we didn't cover too much last time is the fundamental principle that is different that we may not see in classical homeopathy as much or not use is the notion of polarity. So that was one question that I definitely need you to expand upon. But what I was thinking is if you could talk about a case and show us how it's actually done and what you need. Like when you look through your course, do we need anything else? Because on your front page, there's several recommendations. Actually, if you can share your screen, we can put that out and just address that right away. Because there was some confusion when you get the course, do you have to get all these other, other resources? And all of us know now, well, this could change, but on Google, you can still find homeopathy. They haven't managed to completely get rid of it. But on the,
So this is what I want to show. I'm just going to move this out of the way. This is the front page explaining about the software that I'm going to show you very quickly. And this software is provided for 4 months trial basis. And then it's available for a $12 a month fee and or an amount, a set amount. I have to double check the amounts because they may have changed. And I should correct this probably. I think it is 12 euros a month, but I'll probably double check this and correct it. After 2 years, you own it for life. And there are no books that I provide or require, there are many, many resources for books, searchable books online for free. And then I've got many recommendations in the course for advanced choices of software. And there's a couple that I show on the front page. And one of the things about homeopathy software is it can be very, very expensive. And so I've actually negotiated really good value here. And you can either pay monthly or there's a fixed fee, but that is explained deeper into the course. And those prices and offers are for subscribers of the course. So what is the software? Is that okay if I go to that?
Yeah, I think exactly, because that's the one that comes with the course and that you need to make the course work.
Yeah.
And yeah, that would be great to show it.
Yeah. So I'll just briefly describe it and then show it afterwards. Can you see it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. So when homeopaths prescribe, they take the symptoms of the patient, and many symptoms have what we call a polar symptom. Sorry, I've just got to get rid of this. And a polar symptom is the opposite. So if we look at this column here under Bry, which is the abbreviation for bryonia, we see that under the rubric or symptom thirst, if we go below the red line, we'll see the opposite symptom. And so what we gain from learning about the fact that remedies have different or opposite symptoms is that they can have different grades in those symptoms. And so the grade is a 4 out of possible 5 for thirst. And yet in the opposite symptom, it's a lower grade, only a 1. So the argument is much stronger for this remedy because it has a higher grade. And we can look at the score. So I'd like to show it in action and then talk about a case itself. So this is the same what we call repertorization, and we can see the software allows us to go through something called a checklist. A checklist is such that it lists the reliable symptoms, those symptoms that have an opposite symptom. So for example, if this patient preferred to be and was better in open air, we'd click it in and it would immediately show the remedy. And I'm sure that would probably have been the case with that patient when we talk about it. So going through, we can look at the positions that the patient takes in their ill state. We've all had a child who wants to lie on their tummy when they're sick, or they're much worse when they get up out of bed, or they're restless and find themselves moving differently. So we have all these different aspects of the symptoms. And these are all excellent and reliable symptoms. In fact, the highlighted ones are especially reliable. So it makes your job in terms of determining what is the useful symptom for prescribing so simple. In this other view, we can look at all the symptoms of a repertory, and we can see how they're actually graded: highly reliable, medium reliability, and low reliability by color. And so if the patient was angry, we could put it into the repertorization. If they were, well, that would be the opposite. So I wouldn't want to do that. Sorry for that. Let's say they had something going on with the whites of their eyes. We could put that in as well, and it would further support the choice of different remedies. And so what you end up having are different views of the data. You can see how many times a remedy is represented in the symptoms. You can see the standard number of hits or scores that the rubrics give, the symptoms give for that remedy. And then finally, the new feature is the polarity score. And this is what gives us such high reliability. This is a 15, this is a 14. These are very good choices of the remedy. And we'd be able to then go to our book or look online and choose between just these two as most likely candidates. Any homeopath would have a good time with this. So I'm going to actually go back to explain what is the polarity system. And polar symptoms are those that have an opposite pole. And in fact, it's not new to homeopathy. And in fact, Bonninghausen was one of the first originators of homeopathy, talked about them as constellations, where the symptoms can have the opposite, the remedy can have the opposite symptom. And he'd call them constellations, and he talked about how the grade would argue for it. And this was utilized in a 2001 to 2005 study, double-blind study undertaken in Switzerland, where homeopathy is enshrined in the constitution now. But what they found was that they could make much better results using the polarity analysis method. And in fact, it increased the success rate from 60% using ordinary homeopathic method to 70 to 75%, which meant that 3 out of 4 patients with ADHD would respond positively to homeopathy. And so you have this research behind it. And doing the research, they were able to determine what were those reliable symptoms that would lead to a good prescription. So I'm going to give a little representation of this in practice. So I got a call from a female patient who's been a patient for a long time, but was away studying in the US. She ended up having a positive test for COVID and was in quarantine. And this was in the September of 2020. And you remember when all the university students went back, there was epidemic. Everyone was sick with something. And of course, a lot of positive tests. And they quarantined the kids. She was very sick, very, very bad flu, but extremely anxious about the effects on her studies. And also fearful of getting sicker. So she had this tremendous anxiety. She'd gotten through a night from taking NyQuil, and then we talked and we came through her symptoms. And using simply the checklist that I showed you earlier, we came up with these symptoms: the fever alternating with chills, the hands and feet cold. She had a very dry mouth. She was extremely thirsty for cold water. She had a cough with a desire for fresh air. She was worse breathing in, and it would bring on the cough, better lying down, and better stretching out. So just those simple 8 characteristics of her illness. So you'll notice there's no flu, there's no cold, there's only the cough is a characteristic of her flu. And so there's not a diagnosed disease that we're using. We're just using the symptoms as they express in her ill state. And that's very important to use.
Yeah. And Jonathan, in the system, for people who are just beginning, you can, when you showed, like, you have a whole bunch of choices.
Yes, that was.
So if you don't think about it, you can go, oh, so when is your cough worse or whatever, and you'll actually have some of the answers here, right? Or if you're worse in general when you're warm or wrapping up. So there's clues right there for you to be able to.
Yes, bear in mind that we've leapt forward to the 3rd module to demonstrate a little bit about this. The first 2 modules will give you the background, and then of course we have a deeper dive into what is the way to take a case, etc. And there are many, many case examples in the course that allow people to get familiar with doing this. But I thought for the purpose of our presentation, it would be good to just see
Yeah,
what
I
happened.
just wanted to make sure people were following.
Yeah, good. So these were the symptoms we chose
Yeah.
in the repertorization, the analysis, and we came up with several remedies across the top here: bryonia, aconite, anacardium, calcarea, etc. But when we compare the first two, they're both very known as flu remedies. And bryonia had a representation in 5 rubrics. It scored 19 and its polarity score was 12. And that's the difference between the grades of the actual symptom versus the opposite symptom. So you add this total, 23 minus 8, and you come to, wait, I've done that wrong. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 7, 11, 19. So 19 taken away from 7 equals 12. So the total of these numbers is 19, and the total of the numbers below the red line are 7, and that yields a score of 12. So it gives a strong argument for that remedy choice. Whereas this remedy has only a score of 10, but it had just as good representation, and it had many more arguments for the choice of the remedy than against it, for the choice of this remedy for her symptoms. And so in actual fact, I won't go into the details of the analysis, but I did choose that remedy, and it was very good. She got through the flu, we'll call it that, very easily. And it was one of the prime remedies for treating the COVID flu at the time. So the comparison was mainly between bryonia and aconite, with a special attention to what are called these are words that describe the characteristics of the symptoms. So I hope that gives a little view of how we so easily, I mean, this literally took 5 minutes. Literally took 5 minutes. And that's how fast you'll get at practice with this methodology.
Question for you. So from a mathematical perspective here, you're saying bryonia has 12 polarity differences and aconite has 10, which sounds like it doesn't have as many as bryonia, right?
Yes.
So the leap from, because if you just did it mathematically, you'd say bryonia sounds like a better choice.
Maybe.
Is it because when you look at thirst absent and better breathing and worse food and drink cold, because aconite does not have the opposite, it therefore is closer in nature to aconite, plus whatever mental emotional symptoms that you might look up in the Materia Medica. Is that like I have not used this method, so I'm asking, is that a right?
I think we'd be more general. In a sense, this is a group of remedies and a small group that you can differentiate so easily and so quickly. And oftentimes I might go further down and choose calcarea, which has a lower score, but it's in the books that you read about the remedy and get a little more detail that you would confirm your choice. And I would say this, that it's quite likely that any of these remedies would affect her positively, because they all have a strong representation of her state of disease. And we see that in homeopathy. This is an acute case. We're looking for a remedy that she has available. Right. And it may have been that she only had aconite available. Maybe I didn't have bryonia, right, but available to her. And then also one of the symptoms that I didn't put in was the desire for fresh air. If I go back to the same case, which is represented here, I'll take out, and then I add in desire for open air increased. we come to aconite is the strongest remedy, and actually bryonia is contraindicated. So I probably saw that in the Materia Medica.
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe remembered it.
Yeah.
But I didn't put it in, perhaps because she was quarantined. So we didn't know.
Yeah.
She probably, what was the real reason for her wanting fresh air? So you have to go with symptoms that are true to the state, that really absolutely represent it. And so if I take it out again, we see bryonia coming again. And maybe bryonia would have been the ideal remedy, but we did well with aconite nonetheless. So it didn't matter that the remedy's perfect or not. The remedies chosen were ideal. And if one, in an acute, you often have your first choice and then have to go to a second choice. And I will actually give people the option that after 3 hours, if there's no change, we'll switch to the other choice. And that's because acutes respond so quickly.
Manon Bolliger here, and I want to thank you for taking actionable steps towards engaging your healing journey and helping others discover their path by watching, sharing, subscribing, and reviewing these podcasts. Every review and share helps spread the word, these different perspectives and choices and options for healing. And to thank you, I'd like to invite you to sign up to my free 7-sequence email tips on health and healing for everyday life. You can go to healerscafe.com tips. Thanks so much. Yeah. And also, like you were saying earlier, but if you look up, whether you do it on Google or in those 2 other programs, when you're deciding you want to get more in depth, on the Materia Medica and read all the different books, you might find, like bryonia doesn't really want to move very much, right? Whereas aconite is quite restless and anxious.
Yes.
So, again, this could be a clue that would make you go one way or the other. So we can always add what we know to this, but this is like a super simple, fast way to get to the essential choices that you need to look at, because like you said, in an acute, any remedy close enough will trigger the immune response positively, and then the body knows what to do, right? So
one aspect I'd like to point out, because I think it's so useful, is that when we look at a remedy further down in the list, mercurius, it also represented very well. But when we look at it, it's grayed out. And then we see why it's grayed out when we read CI, contraindication. So what that meant was that this symptom, saliva increased, is a characteristic of mercurius, whereas the opposite symptom, even though it's a 3 in grade, is her symptom. So in actual fact, if I took this out, we'd see mercurius strongly, and it would be in normal homeopathy without using the system, we'd easily choose mercurius for the same patient. And it might well work, but not as likely, not as likely. When we put in the saliva, once again, sorry, I've lost it. Let me go to the symptoms and just show how fast it is, which is not fast right now, but normally it's much faster because we're not recording and doing all these things. So she had saliva diminished. We put it back and you can see that the calculation is there. So when there's a contraindication, I always double check. Have I really got a true symptom? Is this true of her state when she's ill, now that she's become ill? Or is she just always with dry mouth? That's not a real symptom. And so it gives you that opportunity to really narrow down. And in fact, in the system, we can use these checklists on paper and hand the patient in the waiting room when they come in, explaining to them the purpose of the parameters of the checklist, and we can often come up with wonderful, wonderful symptoms to follow. Really, I mean, I hear about some homeopaths now taking 4 hours to just sit with the patient and take a case. And I can't imagine ever needing 4 hours. When I do a chronic case now, it's usually an hour. And that's mostly to get the history, whereas the symptoms themselves are easily checked off using this system. Yeah, thank you for letting me talk so much.
No, that's good. It's perfect. Well, I think it explains this, and I'm just thinking, yeah, I was 11 hours my first few cases, not sitting in front of the patient. It was 2 hours.
That was the reading up on it.
Reading up and figuring out what's different, what's in a sense, because like you said, it's not a new notion. Contrary symptoms, in a sense, it's like no, that has to be much stronger. We can't have that. No, they love the sun, so I can't really have a remedy that it hates the sun and is aggravated from it, right? Like these are kind of things that you think about, or drafts, or they're innate expressions of the way that people get sick, right? So you have to work with that, but to get to know those, and this is so simple, it's just, it's quite shocking.
Well, this is based on a particular book by Bowen called the Therapeutic Pocketbook. Okay. And in the Therapeutic Pocketbook, there are some 3,079 symptoms listed, representing 125 remedies. And in that list of 3,079 remedies, symptoms, are 355 symptoms that have a polar symptom. And what he did was generalize all the itty little bitty symptoms that you see these massive repertories use. And he was a genius. In fact, his background was interesting because he was a horticulturist, a judge, a lawyer. And so he's very detailed. And what he was able to do is take the original material, the scientific results of Samuel Hahnemann and his team, who elicited the exact symptoms of remedies, and Bowen is the one who collated them. And in fact, what was interesting about from my discovery of polarity analysis was that I came into homeopathy when there was this huge growth of knowledge and new medicines and new methodologies. And I certainly learned my share of them, but it didn't make me reliable. And so at the time, I was already revisiting Hahnemann and Bowen and Herring and Allen, these very original homeopaths who always got good results. Anyway, so then I came across Dr. Heiner Fry and the polarity analysis software. And honestly, I was like it was a magnet for me. I was drawn. Absolutely drawn. And I'd say this because, I do Bowen therapy as well. And majority of my patients, whether they've come for homeopathy or just for Bowen, that would be the visit. And I was able to then add in homeopathy so reliably. Absolutely, my practice just blew up because of it. And I would say that the homeopathy 100% improved my results with Bowen therapy as well. I think that I feel to be true. Even though Bowen therapy is an amazing modality, I think you can still get better. And that's what we all try to do.
Yeah, it's like, what door do you want to open first? Like I found in my little universe, it was often men preferred to do Bowen because they just want get me fixed and get me out of here. And you could do that, but if they suffered from anxiety or something else like that, that would take a little longer. I was a female practitioner, or Yeah, no, I'm still a female. I gotta be really careful these days what you say.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I
but
mean, at least you're not saying a they.
no, but as you know, a lot of the female not practitioners, patients, you know, it's like you build a relationship with homeopathy because it's a moment to actually speak about what's going on and sort of open up completely. And then it was like, okay, so now I can see the big picture, and let's do Bowen to sort of quickly help the body detox, and let's clear this and do that and whatever, you know, and get rid of this injury and whatever, and then let's go back to homeopathy and take off whatever's left of the deeper emotional stuff. Not that I haven't done that with Bowen, but it's yeah, it's quite a beautiful, like, I mean, it's fun to, you know, have another practitioner that does both, because it's really, they're just beautiful therapies, you know, both of them.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
if I was a massage therapist or chiropractor or craniosacral practitioner, I would absolutely want to add homeopathy because, as you say, that emotional component that we are stuck in physiologically is so easily worked through when you add homeopathy.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it would be useful to show a little bit about the actual outline of the course.
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple minutes left, so not much time, but sure, do the outline.
I just leave it, take 30 seconds.
Yeah, do that.
So this is the page, and I'm going to go to the course outline, and I'll just list the actual program. And so module 1 is about the foundations of homeopathy, the people behind it historically, and then all the philosophy, lots about research. So these are all individual lessons ranging from around 40 minutes, where there's a video presentation and an audio, as well as the material online. And then you have the tools you would need in order to practice homeopathy. We talk about books, software, remedies, what are the types of books, etc., etc. Then we go into further understanding about reliable symptoms and other types of symptoms, how to take cases. And this is all from the foundational, traditional way of learning homeopathy, because without having a big foundation, jumping into what we represented today would make no sense. And so we go into then the polarity analysis module and understand it. And you can see that there's a lot of the background. And then we go into case examples from acute to musculoskeletal to all the way through to cancer. And then there's a final module talking about just management stuff. So, and including ethics, etc. And then different types of methodologies to understand, you know, all the different forms of homeopathic practice. So it's I think a complete course. It's as I said, it's the course I would have wanted myself. And when you complete the lesson, it'll show a tick, it'll show your progress, on and on. There's lots of nice parts to it. So thanks for the.
And like we did last time, where we're going to put the link so that you can go to the page and join if it interests you. And then if you have questions, make sure you put it at the bottom of the podcast so that we can get to answer you. All right. So
I'll just stop sharing then.
Yeah, sure. And then we'll say bye. And yeah, thank you again for sharing all that. And I'm very excited about this. That's great.
Good. Then you must go sign up for the polarity analysis.
Well, you know, I'm officially not working anymore. Actually, I'm really not seeing people anymore. You know, because of our lovely situation here in Canada. So, but you know, I'm still a learner. When I see something that makes sense and I like, I'm excited. So But I won't be teaching, to those who know me, I'm not going to teach homeopathy. So I would not be promoting this to all the people I know if I didn't think that it's something really great. So I just, you can ask me questions, but that is really my opinion. So if you're interested, I think it's 30-day money back guarantee anyways. If you go to it and you think like, whoa, what have I done? You can change your mind, but I don't think you will. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Manon Bolliger. Continue your healing journey by visiting thehealerscafe.com and her website, and discover how to listen to your body and reboot for optimal health.